Happiness is based on what is happening to you. So if the things that are happening to me are good things, then I can be happy. And if the things that are happening to me are bad things, then I cannot be happy. But when you get into the scriptures, what is very interesting, in fact, the thing that starts separating Christians and the people of God from the people of the world is that Christians are people who can have sorrowful things happening to them and still be, quote, always rejoicing. So, dude, honestly, this is really interesting, man. If you go, arguably my favorite book of the New Testament is the book of Philippians. If you go read Philippians, dude, this is really interesting. Paul writes Philippians from a jail cell where he is assuming or wondering that he is awaiting a death sentence. And yet, when you read the book of Philippians, he mentions joy, rejoicing, how happy he is more than any other book of the Bible. Why? Because there is a difference between joy and happiness. And Paul is able to have joy even with the things that are not happening to him are good, okay? So what I would say is happiness is based on happenings, joy is based on Jesus. Let me just say one last thing here, because actually I want to show an example of this from a really great golfer. Okay, it's Scotty Scheffler, isn't it? That's who that clip is. I want to show this real quick. What you're going to notice in the Bible is that joy is very often something that people come to when they actually exhaust resources for happiness. It's like, dude, I'll be really, really honest with you. My life, if I look back at my life, it's kind of like happiness is this thing. I almost feel like a shadow where it's like when I get here, then and then you get there and the shadow is just a little farther out. You know? So like, honestly, man, I don't know about you guys, when I look at my life, you know, it's like, man, as a kid, I was like, dude, if I can just, whatever the toy was that year. Then you get a little older and it's like, man, if I just had a girlfriend, that'd be really, really great. And then you're in high school. It's like, I'll be happy when I get to college. I got a little more freedom. And then you get to college. I'm just going to shoot you really straight. You know, you're 18, 19. I'm like, oh man, you know, when I can finally get married and have sex, so then I'll be happy. That'll be then you get married. Jay and I get married, and our first year of marriage, we lived with my parents and shared a bedroom wall with my parents. Like
first year of marriage?
Yeah, it was within the first couple of years. I do not recommend doing that. Let me just. And you know, it's like so then I'm like, oh man, maybe we can buy our own house. We got our own place, then we'll be happy. And then you get it, and you're like, well, that ain't it. Well, when we have kids, Shanna did the infertility thing. Maybe when we have kids, we have a full family, then we'll be happy. And then, dude, when I look back at my life, it's like, man, maybe when I have a successful ministry, and I'm like successful, maybe then I'll be happy. And dude, it was the first year I preached Easter at Lake Point. When I was in high school, I remember I had to write an essay in my class for like, man, what's your life dream? And in high school, I was like, man, maybe there was some flesh in here, but whatever. I was like, man, if I could ever, I wanted to preach. And I was like, man, if I ever got to preach to 10,000 people, I just think that's a life dream, you know. And I remember the first year I was at Lake Point, I finished preaching Easter. And attendance was well over that. And I got off the stage and I remembered high school Josh thinking, if I ever preach 10,000 people, I will have made it. And I walked off the stage that first year. I was like, that wasn't it. And I honestly think you got to come to the end of the happenings to realize, man, I need some joy that's based in Jesus. So I'd say yes.
Yeah, I think on that, it reminds me of a few things he said about the shadow. It reminds me, and I think we'll actually see this in the Scheffler video, the things he says, it's almost like from the book of Ecclesiastes.
Bro, I got that in my notes.
Yes. I keep actually stepping.
You stole it again.
No, go for it.
Every week. But what's interesting is in the book of Ecclesiastes, he talks about vanity, everything is vanities. The word there is actually like the idea of vapor or mistiness. Think the idea of a mist that you can see or a fog, or even now that it's colder outside when you breathe and you can see your breath and you go out to grab it and you think you grabbed it, but then it just slips through your hands. That's the picture here. And so as you spend your whole life chasing these things that eventually make you happy, and then all of a sudden you get there and it just slips through your hands and it actually doesn't give you what you want because we were designed for more than that.
That's right.
Even in Ecclesiastes, it talks about how eternity was set in our hearts. So if we're grasping anything besides God that we cannot possibly give us what only God could give us, it's going to slip through and not give us the joy that we actually most want and need.
That's exactly right.
You have a video you want to show about that?
I honestly honestly do. Like, so there's a million. There's different things. I was like, show this. Jim Carrey's got that famous deal where he's like, I wish everybody could get rich and famous and whatever, so that they could see that it's not the answer. Tom Brady has the famous 60 Minutes interview where he's like, man, I think at that time he'd won 3 Super Bowls. You know, he had a Victoria's Secret supermodel wife and most famous guy in the world, and whatever. And he literally, in the 60 Minutes interview, he literally says, God, it's got to be more than this. Yeah, it's like, surely there's something more out there. And then this is Scotty. This was right after he won. You might remember.
I think he says the Byron Nelson or something like that.
No,
Yeah.
dude. I think this is after he won a I think this is after he won the Masters. So for a non-golfer, like, Scotty's like
best in the world.
He's like on fire right now. So like, we won't watch this whole thing. So here's what this is. This is a living embodiment of the book of Ecclesiastes. He's just finished his winning, how many majors he's won. He's number 1 golfer in the world, and it's not close. And a reporter asks him, bro, what's it feel like to be the guy? You've got everything you've ever wanted. And I think the reporter's expecting like this is awesome. And instead, you get a living embodiment of the book of Ecclesiastes. Run this real quick.
I think it's kind of funny. I think, I think I said something after the Byron this year about, like, it feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling.
It's a mist
like to win
and
the
a
Byron
vapor.
Nelson Championship at home. I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? Life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. To get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people.
Okay. So, bro, that dude is literally preaching the book of Ecclesiastes, and he doesn't know it. So think about what he just said. I got it. It lasted 2 minutes. It's a mist. It's a vapor. No matter how much I get, I can't grasp something that will actually satisfy me. Okay, dude. So let me read these verses. So this is Ecclesiastes. And that dude just preached the book of Ecclesiastes. So this is Solomon, richest, most powerful dude in the world. He's got 700 wives and 300 concubines, or vice versa. And this is what he says, okay? He says, I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs and water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house, and others going, bro, I don't even got to work. Because I got everything. I don't got to do anything, is what he's saying. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself, and treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers, and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. In other words, he's going, however good you got it, I got it better than you. However much you won, I won more than you. However rich you are, I'm wealthier than you. He just like dunks on him. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. Then check this out, verse 10. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired, refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Happiness is based on happenings. Joy is based on Jesus.
And then the counterpoint, in part, we go back to Philippians, which Philippians is one of my favorite books too, is you then have Paul, who basically lists off his accomplishments. And then he says, I count them as rubbish, as crap, compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Jesus Christ. And so like when you're like, it's not what Scotty's a believer. He's a strong believer. He's not saying, oh, life is meaningless and pointless. It's that, hey, if you chase anything except for Christ and anything except for the eternal God who's put eternity in your heart, man, you are going to come up empty. But then conversely, if it's like not Solomon, but the Apostle Paul is like, on the other hand, if you realize that everything in life, not that it's bad, but compared to knowing Jesus,
That's right.
it's crap.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the reason why this is important is because Christianity is not only a belief system, but it's also a relationship that we enjoy.
Yeah,
so the reason why that matters is because you can accomplish all the things, and you can, like, again, we say this before, we don't follow Jesus because he makes life better. We follow Jesus because Jesus is better than life.
That's right.
And so joy is important because if somebody's listening and they're like, well, I'm maybe interested in being a Christian, or I've been a Christian for a bit, guilt will not sustain a faithful walk with God.
Yeah, that's good.
It has to be joy.
That's good,
Like if you
Carlos.
want to walk with Jesus long term, guilt will not be enough, or a fear of hell, which, by the way, we're going to go into this in just a little bit. You have to realize that Christianity is not a whole bunch of has to, it's a bunch of gets to.
That's right.
It's a relationship you get to have. You get to have intimacy with the Father. You get to pray. You get to dive into the Word. We don't read the Bible because we have to. We actually enjoy reading the Bible here in the Live Free podcast, even.
Right.
And so, and it's ironic because too, when you look at Christianity, anybody would think that a religion of a cross, of persecution, of denying yourself, and a religion that follows a crucified Messiah, that sounds the last thing joyful. But that's where the joy is found.